curly and shiny, thick and wavy, lustrous and coarse. There's nothing more unique than black hair. There are truly no limits to the creativity there is when styling our hair. We wear it with pride, a show of our heritage and self-expression. But with the natural hair movement, some blacks have come under fire on the job and in our schools for how we choose to wear our hair. Most recently, a Dallas TV anchor found herself in the midst of the debate, and her response to viewers has gone viral.
By the way, if you are one of those people typing on your keyboard about this style not being professional, please help me understand. Why does my crown offend you so much?
Tonight, Tashara Parker goes on record as we discuss black hair and acceptance in the workplace. On Record starts now.
Good evening and thanks for being here tonight. It's hard to believe that in 2020, we are still having a discussion about natural hairstyles and acceptance in the workplace. Everyday Black men and women are still facing criticism and discrimination from employers and colleagues about the way we wear our hair. Some have had job offers rescinded and even been fired just for the style or perceived look of our hair. The TV world is no different. In some cases, every day, Black journalists, especially Black women, continue their fight to be heard and to be seen as representation and leadership and even on the air. At the top of the show, you heard a short clip from WFAA Dallas morning anchor Tashara Parker, who so eloquently addressed some of her viewers who found her natural hair to be inappropriate for on-air TV. Her statement went viral across the nation and was even featured on the NBC Today show. Take a listen. All right. So we didn't have any audio with that, but we're going to bring everybody on now. I'm so excited to have Tashara with me tonight. Tashara Parker, WFAA News 8 in Dallas, Texas. As a news break anchor, Tashara brings experience, vibrancy, and authenticity to her viewers in Texas and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In other words, she keeps it real. We also have the Brown, chief meteorologist of WIS News 10 in Columbia, South Carolina, joining us and returning guest as well. Also, licensed professional counselor Jessica Van. She is here. Thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Awesome. Tashara, yeah, not a problem. Tashara, this is going to be a great discussion. Tashara, I want to get started with you because you talk about the fact that representation matters. You started that at the very top of your perspective that you gave that morning. Walk us through this whole process of what happened. So essentially, how did you come up with this hairstyle and that you were showing your representation on the air? And then you kind of got some viewer comments that were not necessarily in approval of the way you decided to represent yourself that particular morning.
Yeah, I want to start off with saying it was never a situation where I walked in saying, oh, I'm going to wear my hair like this because I feel like representation matters. It was never that, right? Did I question whether or not people would have something to say? But that's all the time. You know, it doesn't matter how I wear my hair, whether it's in its natural state, whether one day I don't feel like putting any juices and berries in it and I want to rock it like Angela Davis or however, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's my fro, whatever it is, you're as a Black woman in this industry, you always question that, you know, and if there are some who don't, kudos to you, but many of us do. And so it was never a question of whether representation matters because I always knew that and I always understood that, but I'm not sure everybody else does, you know, when it comes to hairstyles and how Black women in particular wear our hair. And so when I wore that hairstyle to work, yes, I was concerned. Yes, I, you know, wonder what people would say. I did. It's natural. It's natural. We've been accustomed to this look of how you should look on air. And yeah, so yeah, I was worried. And so prior to that, I actually had an event that I attended where I did get my hair styled that way. And I did a photo shoot a day or two before. And so my hair was like that. And I was like, oh man, I should I change it? Should I even worry about something like that? And yeah, I posed the question, like, should I wear my hair this way? And so, yeah, I was concerned about it, but it was never representation matters that blossomed out of me wearing my hair that way, but it's always been that way. I think that's something that's been ingrained, you know, in my mind, that representation matters. But I think that hairstyle truly made the situation become something way bigger than I ever thought it would become.
Yeah, you have garnered a lot of attention for that. I mean, even the Today Show did a feature on you and the fact that you're making this statement. I mean, you really made a statement as far as the viewers are concerned. I think a lot of times, and Dominis, you can actually speak to this as well too. I think a lot of times when we're on the air, we're faced with that whole criticism from our viewers. And sometimes they can get a little bit hasty when they're making comments and they think that because they're, Tashara, as you so eloquently put, hiding behind a keyboard.
Right.
So a lot of times when you're hiding behind that keyboard, you feel like you can say whatever you want to say. But the entire issue is that, okay, you have a responsibility when you're on the air. And guess what? When you go on the air, you put your best foot forward every single day, knowing that you're going to do and you're going to represent well. Talk about your response to the viewers, because we weren't able to hear the entire package, but just kind of give us a synopsis, Tashara, of what you told the viewers when you got these emails.
Yeah. So, and it wasn't emails. In this situation, there have been situations in the past where I got emails, and I'm sure we may have received something to our email inbox, but we got several messages, of course, and posts on social media. And so in essence, what the piece basically said was that, like you mentioned early on, two words that I've heard often: representation matters, but does representation actually matter when it comes to people of color, to Black people in particular, to Black women in particular, especially with something that seems like it's such a trivial topic as hair, right? You know, we always want to say, I am not my hair, but man, oh man, they make us become our hair because it causes such an uproar in all these different situations. And so in essence, that piece basically said, look, instead of you being worried about how I'm wearing my hair, you know, focus on things that truly matters. You know, is my work being done? You know, am I telling you the right information? You know, are you getting the exact same information that you would get as opposed to if my hair was straight? Nothing changed with that. Nothing changed at all. Same person, same, you know, individual up there providing you the same type of information, yet you choose to focus on hair. And so basically I tried to bring to light some of the things that women have been going through for many, many years. And what was so interesting in the responses that I did receive from that piece was that a lot of women, not just in media, but in corporate America, you know, started reaching out to me saying they had experienced many of the same issues. They didn't know how to address it. So the fact that my station did give me that platform, because I'll be honest with you, I'm the type of person, look, if I did not address it on air, it was going to get addressed. And that's just it. You know, I was going to address it, whether it be on social media or whatever it may be, I was going to address the situation. So one way or another. So the fact that my station did allow that platform, you know, I think it goes to show their support in the things that I do and their support of me being able to respond to those individuals. So again, just in essence, the piece said, look, why are you so focused on hair when there are so many more important things that you could be focused on? And hair shouldn't be one of them, which is one of the reasons that I've kind of gotten on board with trying to make sure the Crown Act gets passed.
Amen.
But you know what's so crazy about that, Tashara, is I think with us being a visual medium, I think a lot of people are always watching what we're wearing, what we look like before they hear anything that we say that comes out of our mouth, whatever report we have, whatever forecast we have. It's the look thing. And I totally agree with you. Why is it that you can't go based on just our merit and our work that we do compared to what we look like on television? I know females, ladies have it much harder than do by far. You know, I'll get some comments now and then, but I think women definitely have it harder, especially in television, than men do.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember even there was I don't want to call it an experiment, but in essence, there was an experiment where this news anchor, a male, basically wore the same suit and the same shirt. I don't know if it was for months or 60 days or whatever it was. I don't know if you guys remember this or you heard about this, but it was a while ago. And he did this and nobody said a word. Can you imagine? So I had this little yellow dress, this little mustard dress that I like to wear, and I like my little mustard dress. It's cute. And so look, I had this little mustard dress, and I probably wore it maybe 3-4 times. I've been in Dallas a whole year. I've worn that dress 3 or 4 times, and somebody gonna comment, "Oh, you like that yellow dress, don't you?" Like, would you say that to anybody? Exactly. I do like my yellow dress. Oh, come on, Jessica. You got to know I responded to him.
Absolutely.
And so it just goes to show that, yes, they're much more worried about how we look and all that kind of stuff as opposed to what we're doing. But don't get it twisted. Like, I get that. It's a part of being on television. Like, if I didn't want to care what people had to say about everything that I do, then, you know, maybe I should have chosen a different field. But at the end of the day, like, I know that comes with the territory. But what also comes with the territory is me being able to say something back to you. So if you're going to send in those messages, if you're going to complain, if you're going to do all those things, especially if you're not backing it up with merit, it's one thing if somebody jumps into my inbox and says, you know what, that dress, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'll respond to those nicely. You know, we'll have a genuine conversation, real talk. But when you want to get out there emailing the entire station, when you want to send text messages, because we got this whole thing where people they really feel like they be all up in our business. It's basically a phone number and they can text message us and we can literally text back and forth with these folks on our viewers on text message. And it's a very good tool when it's used for good. But you know, people want to start sending messages. So they'll send messages that way, they'll send emails, they'll do all this kind of stuff. And basically just putting you on blast again without backing it up with any additional information or reinforcement to help further. It's just it's a mess. So if you want to feel free to send it to me, then I'm going to respond to it.
Tashara, I want to say thank you, and thank you to your station for giving you that platform, because I actually watched your video several times before Brandon reached out to me, and I showed it to my 2-year-old daughter. I told Brandon I actually went to school for broadcasting, and my first internship was with Fox News, and because nobody looked like me and I didn't feel like I could be myself, I was like, this probably isn't the lane for me, and I made a different choice. Now, there was no one fighting for representation. And from a therapist standpoint, I have to help my clients to undo a lot of the damage that comes along with the message that you cannot wear your hair the way it grows out of your head, or you cannot style your hair the way your culture dictates to be beautiful. And I just appreciate you being one of the many Black women that I have to show my daughter to say, those baby hairs and Afro puffs, that's where it's at. You know, you can be you and still demonstrate that you are intelligent and that you have so much to offer the world. Because you're right, representation matters on so many levels. And you are going to be active in undoing the damage that a lot of, you know, mainstream media has helped to perpetuate. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. And isn't it sad that you even have to think about that, though? Isn't it sad that we have to think about, oh, well, if I wear my hair this way, I'm going to be perceived that way? I mean, we could even dig into colorism and the fact that sometimes people feel like darker skin, you know, means that you're not as intelligent, baby. We can go deep as y'all want to go. But yeah, but when you talk about something like hair, it's just so sad that our babies even got to think about whether or not they're going to be perceived a certain kind of way, specifically based on our hair. And I, for one, will not be somebody that, like you said, you know, mainstream media, what have you, has perpetuated this look of how things should be. And I do feel like that is changing a lot.
I was going to say something because, like, I think there was a formula that we all had to conform to, especially if you're first getting into this business, a formula of how your hair should look, what you should dress like, how you should dress. You know what I mean? And yeah, right. Because you know, even with men, you know, Brendan and I had this conversation. You know, I used to have my hair a low haircut. You can see the scalp more. And I remember in one of my jobs, my boss, she wanted me to grow my hair out just a little bit more. I think she just didn't know to say keep it dark. You know what I mean? She just said grow out your hair a little bit instead of just keeping it dark. You know what I mean? But just that low haircut for a long time was the standard, or you went bald. And now I'm starting to see more men like me growing out the hair just a little bit because, you know, I just want to do something different. And luckily, you know, I work for a station, I work for bosses. They've allowed me to do it without any problems. But I think there's a formula for many, many years that we had to look a certain way. We had to do certain things just a certain, because that's the way it's always been, because nobody really challenged it because you were afraid of maybe losing your job. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to challenge that.
Well, and some people haven't been fortunate in that regard, because there have been, you know, on their personalities who have actually not had that backing of their TV stations, and they were let go because they refused to conform to the standards that they wanted to try to set for those on their individuals. And it's been very unfortunate. You know, they have moved on and they found some other jobs, but still it happens too often, you know, especially in a media organized, in media America, especially in TV America. And the one thing, Tashara and Dominus, that I like, you know, the fact that, you know, not only are you guys on TV, but you're also in levels of management as well, too, just like I was, you know, being an executive producer when I was at WIS as well. And that representation also needs to happen on the management levels, where we are the ones who are going to our higher ups and saying, listen, this is what we feel is going to attract, you know, viewers' attention. This is how we feel we can best represent ourselves on air. So kudos to you guys for, you know, being the ones who are also making that effect in management as well, too, because it's really needed.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing, and this is maybe a little off topic, but when Tashara was talking about getting deep with the hair situation, I think we need to talk about like where this originated. in the history of hair and what our hair means to us as a culture. Basically, when we were in our motherland, our hair was language. It was telling people your status in your tribe. It was telling people your marital status for women, for young girls, your age. And when we were stolen and brought to this land,
Come on now.
of that. We're stripped of that. They shaved male and female Africans. They shaved their heads, stripping them of their identity because it was supposed to be more cleanly. They did not allow them to take care of their hair in the way that they did when they were back in Africa. And so now they're in a whole foreign land, and their language, their literal language, verbal, is stripped. Their, physical language is stripped, and their identities. You have these cultures that are now blending because no one knows what tribe anyone is from, and they're trying to figure out where's their place. And the damage and the trauma that is passed down from that time frame is serious. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to touch on that one piece that you mentioned there about the damage and the trauma being passed down, because folks often just think that it's people who don't look like us who say stuff about hair and natural hair and locks and switching up hair and all that kind of stuff. But I just want to be clear, it's not just it ain't just white people. Okay, there are some black people who basically say, "Oh, I don't like it when it's in a fro. I'd rather see it straight," and they will tell you straight up how they want to see it. I mean, I've even had my grandmother, and I love her to death, but I'm just being, 100% honest here. I've even had my grandmother say, "Oh, well, I like it straight," or, "Oh, I don't see how y'all rock them afros." You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, "Wait, what?" And that's something that's passed down
exactly
through the lines. My grandmother grew up in a very small town in East Texas. She eventually moved to Houston, a big city, but grew up in a very small town, and just think of as country can get, right? And so, that's kind of what was ingrained in their mind, these European standards of what beauty looks like. And baby girl, I'm not trying to be accustomed to those European standards. And like you guys mentioned earlier, when we get into this business, when you first get in, I have some pictures that I've been sharing on Instagram, my Instagram stories, of me when I first got into the business with my little bob, slick, with my wig on, and there's nothing wrong with that. If we want to wear a wig, hey baby, wear your wig, do what you got to do, especially, sometimes we transition in hair, whatever's going on. But it's just so crazy because I don't even look like myself. It was just like, what are you doing? What were you doing?
And when you don't look like yourself, you don't feel like yourself.
Exactly. And you can't be yourself.
Exactly.
Yes. It took a long time for me to get to a point to just be myself on air, and it's because I didn't have anyone to look up to mentor me. And, and that's partially my fault. But growing up, I was a first generation college student growing up, no one in my family. And I'm not just talking about my immediate family. My family had been to college. And so it was a big deal when I finally got to college, but I was also new at everything, right? I was learning everything. And so by the time I got into this industry, I was still learning. I was still trying to figure out, like, how does somebody with a degree get a job? Like, something that doesn't seem very important to somebody who may have had a mom or dad or sister, cousin, whoever go to college, was very important to me. And it was something that was all new to me. And so when it came to having a mentor, maybe someone to reinforce the importance of being yourself, I didn't really have that. I started at a station, a very small station, like many of us do. And no, trying to wear my hair natural, that was not a conversation that was being had. Now, could we have had that conversation? No. Maybe. But that's just not something that was being addressed that early on in my career.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Just want to make sure you guys can hear me loud and clear.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Oh, perfect. Yeah, I had to make some quick switches behind the scenes here. So we have some audio issues. So I cut out for probably about 2 minutes of what you guys were talking about. But now I'm back on fully. So, but the one good thing I say about, and Tashara, was just hearing what you're saying when you're talking about what we were taught at school, I attended Hampton University, so go Pirates, a prestigious Black Ivy League institution. And that was one of the things that we talked about at Hampton, is the fact that, when you are going into any newsroom, that you represent well, because you have to be twice as good, obviously, as our counterparts. And, the one thing that I was taught is the fact that, a good first impression means a lot, especially when you're going into a news director's office for the first time. It could be very nerve-wracking getting your very first job, even if it's on the air. And one of the biggest things that I looked at, and I kind of feel kind of regretful in this stage of my life, is the fact that, okay, maybe I wasn't representing myself as well as I should, because a lot of times I think that we send a representative, as Jessica, as you commonly, talk about, you're sending that representative, but being able to have the audacity to be yourself and to be comfortable in the skin you're in, to be comfortable with what the crown that you do have on your head, and not feel uncomfortable with that, is extremely important. I mean, we're only like a little more than 50 something odd years away from the civil rights movement, but we're still in some ways dealing with a lot of this in this day and age where, people are still being discriminated against just because of the hair that they wear on their head. And I think it's—
But Brandon, I just want to jump in real quick. When you were going into those interviews or sessions, and I hate for you to say that you regretted it. Did you have anybody telling you, hey man, just keep it 100 when you go in there? You know what I'm saying? Did you have that? Most of us didn't. We didn't have that. Now, when I mentor younger girls, and I had a chick that I forgot exactly how she had her hair, but she had a nose ring and all this other stuff. She had it on her resume tape, and the station was actually already in conversation with her, and they had already seen her tape, and they were ready to make a hire. I say, look, they didn't already see your nose ring, your hair, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got nothing to hide. So when you go into this interview, make it happen. You really ain't, seriously, you don't have anything to hide. So why start shrinking yourself to fit into these small spaces when you were meant to be so much greater, right? You were meant to be space in that room. So
we internalize these messages, and that's all that you're getting. Like, I had a very love-hate relationship with my hair. My mom used to, all the Black women watching, on Saturday, you getting the hot comb in the kitchen and the grease. And my mom used to always say, oh, you have hair straight out of Congo. Like that was a horrible thing. And I remember sitting in a stylist's chair in my sophomore year of college. And she said, oh, your hair is beautiful. It's like spun silk. I cried. Wow. I cried because no one had ever told me my hair was beautiful. No one had ever said, oh, it's so thick, it's so healthy. And I was like, but it's straight out of the Congo. And she was like, and it's amazing. And so I took a journey to love my hair, but those messages aren't being reinforced. Even in, our spaces, like you said, Tashara, even our spaces, there are fleeting messages of love yourself, love your beauty, but then it's next to these flowing hair ads for perms or for weaves, and that's great protective styles, but let's up the natural and down that, make those messages fleeting. So this comes from a history. If you look back at the history of hair in America, especially for Black people, there were laws in Louisiana, specifically the tie-on laws, where Creole women or people of African descent had to cover their hair. So what did we do?
Girl, Louisiana got all kind of problems.
Right. But what did we do? We do what Black women do, and we made these beautiful head wraps and we adorned them with jewels, because if you don't want to see my natural beauty, you're going to see how creative I can get.
That's what, Jessica, I think that's where a lot of these problems stem from. I got so many messages of people saying, look, baby, it probably ain't even your hair that they mad at. They mad at everything else you bring into the table. And so the fact that you said, they had to decorate, the head wraps and all that good stuff. That's because no matter what space we get in, baby, we gonna step up and we gonna bring it. Because Brandon, like you said at the very beginning, we got to be 2 times as great to make the exact same impressions. And yes, that sucks. And yes, it's a lot of hard work, but we are always up for the challenge. And I think they recognize that. And that I feel like is where the true problem really lies. Y'all mad at what we bring into the table, and the hair is just a little piece of it.
Right.
Exactly. And Tashara, that's where I was going to actually go next. I'm glad you brought that up. Go ahead, Dennis.
No, I was just saying we always rise to the occasion, Tashara. That's what we always do. Yes. I think you're already right with that.
We do. And it is part of our tradition.
Was to not incite jealousy. Like literally, if you Google the tie-on laws, it says as to not incite the jealousy of white women. And it was like, really? You can make that a law? So we can't make someone else jealous. And it's like you said, why does my crown defend you? Because you can cover it. You can go on camera bald head and still bring the energy that is Tashara, you know?
Hello.
Yeah,
you better say that.
Tashara, where I was going with this, because you talk about that level of confidence. Unfortunately, I think what happens is, especially when it comes to Black women, it's always being viewed as, okay, you're the quote angry Black woman. Whenever you speak, it's almost like, okay, if you're speaking out of turn or if you're speaking with a level of confidence, it always goes left to where they're saying, okay, she's an angry Black woman. Have you encountered some of that yourself in your career?
Now, Brandon.
I'm just
you know I've encountered that, you know, whether it's a text message from a coworker. I got some right now that's still left on red. Look, no, yes, of course. I've encountered that big time.
Yeah.
I think I address it just from a place of facts. You know, I know how to handle different situations. I know when I need to take a step back. I know when I'm not going to be in the right mood or the right headspace to address something. That's something I've learned over time. That's something I've learned with therapy. You know, I'm just throwing that out there, but it's something that I've had to learn over time. And it's unfortunate that that is something that we have to make sure that we're trying to debunk those stereotypes that they put on us, right? You know, I can basically address the situation the exact same way that, say, for example, a white woman chose to address that situation. I said this story on a panel that I had with actually some of my coworkers, a panel that my station hosted, and with some of my coworkers. And basically on that panel, I say, look, I can say what I say, and it's gonna be like, oh, she got attitude. But I'm gonna just throw a name out there. This isn't a real name. Alyssa can say it. And if Alyssa said that exact same thing, like, oh, you sassy today. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, oh, why Tashara can't be a little sassy? Because I know I am on a daily basis. But you know, why does the connotation change when it's just, you know, the color of the skin? The same message, same tone, same everything. But when that person says it's sassy, when I said, oh, she got attitude. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I've dealt with it. But like I said, I've learned over time how to deal with it. And the way that I deal with that is taking a step back when I need to take a step back, because not everybody and not every situation needs to be addressed. I will leave you on red. I will talk to you tomorrow, or we will talk next week. And I'm A-OK.
Leave them on red.
Sure.
I love it.
For real.
You know, if you're not angry, then you become loud. And the word loud is very coded, because it's not always our tone. It's sometimes what we say, and then again, it comes back to our appearance, what we look like, how we carry ourselves, the fact that, you know, you walk into a room and you act as if you own it. I had someone tell me that you walk into every room like you own it. Because I will one day. Because there were times where I walked into the room and I shrunk myself, and then I kicked myself for it. There were times where I didn't stand up, not only for myself, but for someone standing next to me, and I felt horrible. And so my whole thing, now that I have a daughter and I have a young son, they need to see mommy walk into a room like she owns it. They need to know that it's okay, and no one can take that away from you, because I earned this. I didn't have the privilege of going to an HBCU where, you know, I went for 9 months to Morgan State, and it was a very different experience from my PWI experience. But it seemed like the teachers there really fostered a love of self. Well, I didn't always get that at my school, but the Black community, we did it for each other. And so I want to make sure when I walk into a room that I represent. And I think that's the hard part for us mentally, is carrying our race everywhere we go. Hattie McDaniel, when she won the Oscar, and, you know, shout out to my soror, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. But when she won, not an Oscar, Oscar.
Happy Founders Day.
I think she was
Thank you. It was an Oscar.
It was an Oscar.
Thank you, baby. I'll go through all the awards.
Oscar, yep.
But she said, I will always be a credit to my race. How heavy is that? How hard is that for every Black person to feel they're carrying the whole population on their back? I have to look a certain way. I have to talk a certain way. I have to feel a certain way.
Right.
Too much. And so we can only be ourselves. So, but thank you for the happy Founders Day.
Yes, happy Founders Day.
I love that indie love.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, let's also, thank you so much for everybody who is commenting. I want to bring back up Christian's comment for a second. And she was talking about the fact that it is interesting how our hair speaks for us, and there are assumptions made about our attitudes.
I would love to address that.
Yes.
I just want to jump in and say, look, Christian, I hear you, because like I said, when I wear my Angela Davis fro, as opposed to when I put my juices and berries in it and do a little wash and go, as we like to call it, and ain't nothing wash and go about it because it takes about 3 hours to make it happen.
Not a thing. Half the day gone.
But exactly. Exactly. And so, you know, when I wear my hair froed out that way, you know, 70s style is what I like to say. When I wear it that way, you know, I get a few side eyes, you know, they wondering what's really going on. But that's just how I like to do it. But yeah, it's crazy that they would equate that to militant simply because it is an afro. And that's really all it can be, all you can address it to, because there's no other reason that they would say that, you know? So I certainly understand what she's saying.
Yeah, Jessica, I mean, you talked before about the fact that emancipation, especially, I'm going back towards times when we were actually enslaved as African Americans and as Blacks. Even then, during that time, this is a culture that has been cultivated for hundreds of years. This is not something that just happened overnight. Yeah. We're talking about going all the way back to when there were times when our women who were working in the fields were forced to cover their hair or forced to hide. And then if you were as I was reading today about hair and some of during the movement of slavery, that if you were working in the house, that those women were forced to quote unquote assimilate, where they were made to have their hair more straightened. So this has been a grooming process that has been happening for a long time to come, for hundreds of years. And we're just now getting to this place of where we're starting to turn some tides, but still more work needs to be done.
It has. And Tashara mentioned colorism early on, and that's all a big piece of this. It's all intertangled for us. And the idea that our hair is our crown came from our homeland. And there are slave journals that women have written. They were covering their hair also out of shame because they weren't able to take care of it. The only time that slaves were able to commune was in the church. And oftentimes in the church, they would do each other's hair. They would use bacon grease and papers or cotton that they were able to take away from the fields to curl their hair. And as you said, you know, people who worked in the house, they had to assimilate, because the reason they got to be in that position is they were as close to white as they were physically able to be. It's passed down from generation to generation. And our ancestors started us with straightening our hair and hiding our true power. I think Christian wrote, our hair grows towards the sun. It's our antenna. It is our connection to spirituality. But our ancestors taught us to hide that out of safety concerns for us. You have to pass in order to be, accepted. You have to be as close to white as you can. And if you can't look with your skin, then you got to do it with your hair. Women have burned their hair out using all types of chemicals. I am a super, super nerd, and hair, like I said, is my passion. So I'm actually reading a book right now called Hair Story, Untangling the Roots of Black Hair. And it is by Ayanna D. Bird. And she talks about the statements that our hair makes. And like you said, Tashara, it's a jealousy of the things that we're able to do with our hair. It's such a difficult topic, because you can't untangle the trauma. You can't untangle the hurt that comes along with it. When you talk about your 70s afro, it actually talks about in the book how white people were afraid. They weren't
Yeah.
afraid because if you had an afro, regardless of your affiliation, you were automatically a Black Panther.
Black Panther.
And a Black
I
Panther was
know.
a threat to
That's
white
something.
safety. Meanwhile, the Black Panthers were concerned with saving their community and feeding school children in the morning and in
Right.
the afternoons. They were concerned with protecting themselves.
Right.
We weren't coming into white neighborhoods and hurting anyone. So like Christian said, our hair was speaking for us way before we ever got the opportunity to open our mouth.
Yeah.
There's so much there. And believe it or not, when I work with clients on self-esteem, we often start there.
With hair.
We often start from the top. Like, I'm trying to go inside, but I have to start with the top because these women are carrying such pain because of things that have been said about their hair.
Mm. Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
You know, I want to bring up
But
something
I think,
here.
like you said, I was just gonna say
I'm
something
reading
really
from.
quick
Hold on
though.
one
Like,
second,
I think
Denise.
it
I'm gonna
goes
bring
back
up
in history,
something
like you
real quick.
said, conforming to that. Oh, go ahead. You good? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm reading something from online, and this is hopefully everybody knows who comedian Paul Mooney is. And he said this line, quote, "If your hair is relaxed, they are relaxed. If your hair is nappy,
Yeah.
they are not happy." Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I wanted to bring that up too, the fact of talking about the term nappy. Because in some ways that's definitely offensive.
Did he say that in a movie, a documentary or something with Chris Rock?
Yeah, I
What was
believe
that?
it was.
What was that documentary Chris Rock did?
Good hair.
Yeah, good hair.
Good
That's what it
hair.
was. Yep.
That's what it was. Good hair.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Man, nappy used to offend me. It doesn't anymore. When they say I'm good with that. I love it. You know, it's just like when people say, "Oh, she's so ghetto," right?
Oof.
Used to offend me. But now look, just because it doesn't offend me, don't mean I won't get you right together. It just doesn't offend me anymore. So again, when somebody says nappy, I'm like, thank you. You know, unless they're gonna be like, what's that radio show guy when he call him nappy headed? You know what?
Oh,
Y'all know
yeah.
Yeah. We don't need to say no names, but anyway,
No.
you know, unless it's something along those lines. But if you tell me my hair is nappy, okay, that's fine. Now, what I don't like is when people tell other women, especially if you have young girls around listening, when they say, "Oh, you have really good hair." You know, I don't like that.
Yeah,
Unless you saying everybody hair
yeah.
is good hair, like Jessica, like the things that you went through growing up until you got, I think it was your sophomore year. You sat in somebody's chair in college and they finally told you your hair was basically beautiful and soft and all these kind of things. Unless you're saying good hair to every single person that you meet, you know, all the different textures of black hair. That's one word I don't like. Nappy doesn't offend me anymore. And if you try to offend me with nappy, I'm gonna get you right together. But nappy that doesn't really offend me anymore. And I hate that people try to put this negative connotation on it, but it's because of, I'm sure Jessica addressed the history of the word, you know, and how we got here. You know, we were told that nappy hair was not good hair. You know, we were told nappy hair was bad. And so I think it's just the history and where we are now. And even in our own culture, people still say things like that. People will still say, if they see somebody with fine curls, that, oh, you got good hair. And I just kind of side eye them.
Right. Oh, you got, I hear it all the time. Oh, you got that good hair for it. Unfortunately, the level of colorisms are still evident in our community, even to this day. You know, somebody might refer to somebody who is of lighter skin complexion to say that they have good hair, but there's someone who is of darker skin complexion, they might try to say, oh, that person might have nappy hair, or vice versa. And that's the one thing that I hope that we as a community can get away from, you know, because there's a consciousness that is arising within us now in order to embrace who we are individually and, you know, continue to push forward as a community of bringing us together, inclusiveness, not divisiveness, because I think we still have too much of that going on now. I mean, we don't see it diminished as often with us as among Black men in particular when it comes to hair, but a lot of us are starting to really embrace the fact that, you know what, some of us are wearing our hair longer now than we ever have before. I know, you know, I've rocked a couple of styles that, you know, were a little bit higher in nature than once I got out. But you know, but other than that, I mean, so many more of us are wearing dreads. So many more of us are wearing longer hair, even wearing them in ponytails and in general, even guys are. And so we're starting to see that conscious awareness of that. And I'm glad that we as Black men are, embracing each other on that level.
Yeah, I think over time, I think there's a history part of it as well for Black men. I mean, I can't think of a Black male right now off the top of my head back when I was used up that had, like an afro or wearing locks or something like that on TV. They were probably being interviewed on TV. They were not being anchors or meteorologists or sports anchors. So you didn't have anybody to kind of look up to and say, hey, I want to be like that. I want to look like that with your hair. So you just kind of stuck to the formula of keeping a low haircut and that sort of thing. That was it. Or you just go bald. And or if you did decide to do it, you were going to kind of be going against the norm, and you might be called into your boss's office, if you change your hair too much and you got commercials on the air showing who you are multiple times a day. But now you came into the shop with a new hairdo, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful that there are so many more Black men who are being themselves, wearing their crown, like Christian was talking about, wearing their crown high. And showing people, hey, this is okay. And I have to also go back to Tashara, because I saw a post that you did, I guess it was today or yesterday, and there was a young Black girl who I think you showed in the studio. Maybe it was a picture that you did before or posted before, but you did it again. And I think that messaging that we're sending out now to younger generations is so important for representation. Like we said, when you see somebody who looks like you, you're like, man, I can do that too. I can wear my hair like that. Wow, look what he or she is doing. You know what I mean? There's so many messages with that.
Yeah, that young lady, her name is Samantha. And, typically on many journalists, when they get to 1 year, they'll post a little message or, an update letting folks know they've been at the station for a year. And that moment touched me so much that I was like, you know what? I don't got time to be putting together no big old video, none of that. I just want to post this because, especially in this day and age where some of these young girls are in schools where people are pulling on their pigtails or their puffs or whatever, and telling them that their hairstyles aren't cute. And that young lady, her name is Samantha. She's 5 years old. She wakes up every morning to watch me on TV.
Wow.
And for the longest time, I used to think her mom was just, no way, until she started literally reciting some of the stuff that I was saying on the air, and her mom would post some of those videos or send them directly to me, whether it was on Twitter or whatever. And I was just like, wow. And so I said, we need to get her in here. And so, the station made it happen. And that was, months and months ago before the pandemic or what have you. But just seeing that young lady, seeing how much that may have an impact on her life years from now. That wasn't for me. I wanted her to come there just so she can experience it, and she basically told her mom she saw somebody on TV who looked like her. And that's when I was wearing my big fro or what have you. And she, of course, has her little fro. It's just so cute. But she's 5 years old. Her name is Samantha. And she literally told us on TV, we asked her the question, why do you wake up news every day? I want to see the traffic. Where you going, sis? Where you driving to?
You're on virtual school.
Where you going?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. So
There's
that's
a
what he
quote.
was talking about.
There's a quote: if you can see it, you can be it.
Yes.
And that's the thing. If people can see themselves, they have an idea of what they can be. And it's just, if we as parents, I don't know if you guys are all parents, I am, but if we as parents start to tell our babies, be you, do your thing. Like I told my son one day, I said, Josh, that was really weird. And he was like, that's cool, I'm weird, and kept dancing.
Oh, I like that.
And I'm like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I should have never said anything. When I locked his hair because I didn't want to do nobody's hair. I locked his hair, and his dad said, I just want him to be a kid. I said, is he going to age 20 years when we lock his hair? And he was like, not to us, but to society. We really went back and forth on whether or not we could do that.
I like that you mentioned, you know, telling the kids to just be themselves. That is so true. I just today actually did a interview with this therapist talking about conscious parenting. I'm not a parent, but they talked about conscious parenting and really just allowing your kids to be themselves. And as a parent, realizing that you have your own traumas and dealing with those traumas and really coming down to the level of the child. Look, baby, I've been my therapy on. So anybody on here who don't believe in therapy, get your therapy on. And that was just an interview that I had today with a therapist. And she was talking about those things. And I had never heard of conscious parenting. And so, you know, I still have younger sisters and brothers, and that's feedback and advice that I'll pass along to my parents. So it's just very interesting that you mentioned that. Let those kids be themselves and let them, you know, start being true to themselves early on.
That's exactly where I was going to go, because it really starts at home. I think that, you know, we groom ourselves to be insecure starting at home with, you know, our own parents. And I think it's so important now. And I think we're actually starting to see more of a movement where parents are starting to embrace their child being themselves, allowing their child to have, you know, opinions and about what they want to wear, how they want to wear their hair when they go to school. You know, I grew up in a home where, you know, creativity was definitely fostered. And, you know, I know so many of my counterparts are, you know, kudos to them, because they're allowing, I'm seeing all of their children on the Facebook timeline, you know, as kids are going back to school, so many different hairstyles.
They're all different.
I'm loving that movement. It's amazing to see that. And Dominis, I know you're in the community very often. You see it a lot yourself, you know, when you're watching kids and you're seeing them, you're reading to them in some of the schools and stuff. You're seeing that movement yourself as well. So, I mean, kudos to everybody who's actually doing that. And thank you so much for all the comments that are coming in. I mean, this is an amazing discussion. We can keep talking all night about this. And then we have Darcel Glover who's saying, I went through the same thing with the naming of my child. Her name is Jemiah. Some would say that is not the norm.
Right.
Yeah.
I named my son Jackson Robert because I wanted him to be hireable, and I wanted people to look at his resume and not know if he was black, white, purple, or green. Then I went through this spiritual journey, and my daughter's name is Streeter. Like I started to reach back into, like, I want to just name them what feels right.
Right.
And those are the things we have to think of. And so it goes from hair to names to how do we dress our kids? Do we put Jordans on them or not? Like, it's wild. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Because you're constantly thinking, is my child going to be accepted?
And you don't want them to have to deal with undue stress. Right. Right.
Is my child going to have friends? Right.
This world is difficult enough without us putting things on them. So, you know, even when his hair was locked, I asked him, do you want to do this? He said, yes. And I said, okay, this is a permanent decision. And he said, okay, Mom, like, I want to do it. But I was hoping he would back out, because I'll do your hair. You know, I don't want to make it harder for you. But he went with it, and he's doing his thing because I'm teaching him that. Now, my insecurities and anxiety, therapists still have it. And don't go to a therapist who doesn't have a therapist. But I'm still working on those things. So it's ever present, like you said, Brandon.
Yep. Well, thank you guys so much. It's 9:00 now, so I definitely appreciate you guys for joining this discussion, because we can clearly go all night about this. Thank you so much to everybody who's been commenting. I mean, this has been something that we'll be continuing to talk about, unfortunately. But guess what, Tashara, people like you, you know, our Black women, our strong sisters like you are showing up and showing out. And we need more of you in our newsroom, more of that representation on the air to, you know, to show everybody and show the world. Listen, this is who we are. We have earned our place on the televisions, at management level. We have earned our place, and we're going to continue to take place. And we're going to continue to show up where we are needed. We're going to continue to lend our voices to all of our movements across the nation as we continue to push forward in 20 and going into 2021. Let's let 2020 go behind and let's go into 2020 now. Some goodness and some happiness.
Let's do it now.
So, Tashara, thank you so much for being here tonight.
You're so welcome.
Appreciate that. Dominis as well. Jessica, of course, you're always on the show, so I love having you.
I love being here.
Yes. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great night, and we'll be chatting again soon.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Appreciate you.
Great to see y'all. Good to see y'all. Take care. Have a good night.